All right. So the Kickstarter for our story Fennec is live now, so, and you still have time to get your copy. Basically, if you like Power Rangers and you like Kaiju, this is a more adult version of that. And right
Mhm.
now we're here with writer Sarah Cooke.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining
Hi.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Um, so you and Dominic are working on a short story together, The Last Bus. When you're writing horror stories, do you write what scares you?
Yeah, I think I do. Kind of in a couple ways. I think so I'm working on Last Bus and I'm working on another series that's in the earlier kind of writing and editing stages, but it's also a horror. Um and I was thinking about it, kind of the main character of Last Bus and the main character of my other series, Scorned April. Um,
Hmm.
the fear that kind of drives what they're doing is this kind of fear of like, and it shows up really differently, but kind of this fear of like not being good enough or not doing the right thing. And I think when I
Hmm.
am, and then kind of the monsters and the scary stuff that happens is a reflection of that.
Right.
So I think when I am writing horror, I'm kind of writing characters who are kind of afraid of some of the things that maybe I'm afraid of or that I've been afraid of at points in my life, and then the kind of horror-ish stuff, the genre stuff, the monsters and the creatures and those kinds of things. It reflects that.
Right. Oh, yeah. So artists are underappreciated in the industry. A lot of people have been debating AI, and many fear it, but we don't really hear too much about that from writers. What are your thoughts on AI in writing?
Yeah, I think it's upsetting on a lot of levels because it can be used for writing too, to generate written content.
Hmm.
Um, but even kind of beyond that, I think is just what it says, what our use of AI says about what we think of art, kind of in general. Because I feel like art is, whether it's writing or visual art or like music or film or whatever it is, it's supposed to be um, like an expression of something human. That's the whole thing that makes it art. That's why it resonates with people, because it's an expression of something that the artist is feeling and experiencing. And AI, like no matter how good the tech gets, AI can never do that. And I feel like it's kind of like antithetical to what art is supposed to be. And it makes me sad that people think that we can just replace this like very human, like fundamentally human thing with
Right.
something that's so superficial.
Hmm. Has like a dystopian vibe to it.
It
Just,
does.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like what Tyler the Creator said. It's why can't AI be doing mundane shit like filling in potholes? Why did they got to take away our superpower?
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like there's a story in that somewhere, a future where we've kind of outsourced all of the meaningful stuff to AI, and then what are we left with?
Hmm. Hmm. What was your first story that you wrote?
The first one, I wrote a couple of scripts before No Spell Lasts Forever that were kind of my first attempts to write a comic. And I never ended up doing anything with any of those because those are more kind of just learning experiences. Um, my first comic that I actually kickstarted and got published is No Spell Lasts Forever.
Oh, nice.
And I've written before that. I wrote a couple short stories like years ago, and I wrote a lot of poetry for a while. But my first comic story was No Spell.
Yeah, poetry, that's cool. Dom and I used to write poetry a lot together.
Nice.
What's No Spell about?
It's a kind of a noir contemporary fantasy about a magic user who is kind of an anti-hero in the beginning. She's using her magic to help organized crime, but kind of because she feels like she doesn't have any other options. And she ends up dying and making a deal with the devil for a second chance at life. And the bargain is that she has to corrupt one truly good soul. And so kind of her arc over the series is asking herself, like, is she really the kind of person who can do that?
Wow, that's really
Interesting
good.
how you like stories about protagonists that face the devil. Is there something there?
I think I was thinking about that too when I was writing No Spell, how the similarities that it has with, or when I was writing Last Spell, the similarities it has with No Spell. Um, and I think a lot of it is just the imagery of it. It's so, I think, ingrained in our psyche. Um, and just the kind of like the archetypes of like good and evil, and playing with that, because it's, that's not how reality is. Reality is more gray than that. But kind of playing with these archetypes and these images, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Even though we're no longer religious people, the
Mm-hmm.
iconography is still terrifying and sometimes badass, and
Yeah,
sometimes the opposite of badass. It's
yeah.
like it's got everything there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I'm not a super religious person, but the iconography is still so interesting.
yeah, the iconography is interesting. Also, it's like even if the America isn't as religious as it was, it's still in the traditional sense from the European slant, a country built on religion. So a lot of
Yeah.
those things still influence us and what we accept, in our social norms and conditioning. So I agree that I really enjoy things with the religious themes. Um,
Yeah, for
but
sure. Yeah, it still has a huge cultural impact.
mhm. So in the comic world, people often associate comics with superhero stuff. I mean, when Americans hear comics, they think tights and a cape. Or they think that it's for kids. And then also on the writing end, like we have a hard time finding people who write women well, because it just
Yeah,
seems like they just can't they can't do anything other than what they perceive a character of a woman to be.
yeah,
Uh,
it's true.
so what attracts you to comics over novel writing?
Um, I think just what the medium is. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what the medium is.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's really a powerful medium, and there's so much that you can do with it that is different from what you can do with other mediums. Like, you have the visual elements that are similar in some ways to film, but also, since you can kind of like freeze time or speed up time or slow time down in different ways,
Hmm.
it's different from film. And you still get some of the kind of language aspects of novel writing in some ways, with dialogue and narration. So it's kind of this blend of, uh, it's more than a blend of different mediums, but it kind of has some stuff in common with some mediums and some stuff in common with others. But then it's its own medium too, and there are things that you can do with it that you really can't do in any other art form. And I just think that it's really so, to me, it's just everything about the medium is so fascinating. Um, and then just some of the comics that I've read that I really enjoy and that have been so impactful to me, I think have influenced me to want to write comics.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing more of that lately myself. I didn't realize how much comics had to offer, but I'm finding all kinds of creators and stories that just like really expand the world of comics for me. And it's great that you're only limited by your imagination and your skill
Yeah,
level as an artist. So I definitely agree.
yeah, for
Um,
sure. Mm-hmm.
well, I just when you were talking about the pacing too, I recently discovered Shelley Bond as an editor, and I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of Filth and Grammar, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like just pacing and everything that you could do with comics is so so enticing as
Yeah.
storytellers.
And just things like the emotional impact that it can have to put a surprising moment after a page turn, and and the impact of a splash page and things like that. That's no other medium really has those tools in quite the same way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So where can people find your work?
I am on social media, Instagram and Twitter, mostly Instagram, at Sarah C Comics. And you can join my newsletter at sarahlindsaycooke.substack.com.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for jumping on, and it was great interviewing you.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
All right. I'm hitting stop.